And between late 2007 and May of this year, the number of part-timers increased by almost 3 million. A 2013 Gallup poll shows that 1 in every 5 workers is now part-time. Now, some people, like students, may work part-time because that's what they want to do, but for the majority, part-time employment is not a choice. According to the Labor Department, as many as a third of all part-timers fall into the involuntary category, and that almost 3/4 of the new jobs in 2013 have been part-time. Joining me with more on this is Stewart Acuff, co-author of America Back to Work. Stewart, thanks so much for joining us. Let's get straight into it. So
Thank you,
many
Michelle.
people, thank you, Stewart. Many people blame the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare, for the reluctance of businesses to hire people full-time. As the act stipulates, companies with fewer than 50 full-time workers don't have to provide health insurance, nor are part-time employees entitled to company coverage. So how much of a deterrent is Obamacare to adding full-time workers?
Well, Michelle, this is a long-term problem in America. We had a huge strike in 1996 at United Parcel Service over them part-timing work. It's been at least a 20, 25, maybe even 30-year trend in America, part-timing more and more work, driving more and more out of the middle class into the ranks of the poverty. As you know, we now have 25% of our children live under the poverty level. 48 million Americans live under the poverty level, which is about $22,000 for a family of 4. And so employers, particularly the radical right wing, will blame Obamacare or the Affordable Care Act for the part-time trend. But this trend has been going on for a long time. And we've had flat or stagnant or declining wages now for 35 years in America. So this is nothing new.
Right. So Obamacare, you're saying, is nothing new, but it certainly can't be helping the matter, even though the deadline from Obamacare has been pushed out until January of 2015. What do you think the government should be doing then to make sure that part-time work is translated into full-time work?
Well, you know, we're in an economic ditch. We're in, for what is a lot of workers, a depression beyond a recession. And we need more consumer demand. We need more money in the pockets of workers. We need to rebuild the middle class. And that involves a larger stimulus, more investment in our infrastructure, full-time jobs in infrastructure development. We need a new, renewable, sustainable energy sector. We need a much larger railroad grid. We need to fix bridges and roads. We've had 3 bridge collapses.
Well, Stewart, a larger stimulus. I mean, the government is already buying $85 billion worth of bonds every month, and many are saying that perhaps the stimulus may just be too much at this stage. Do you think that maybe the government should have some incentives towards companies for hiring people full-time, some kind of tax break system, perhaps?
That might work, but we have a bigger problem than just part-time jobs. I mean, we have to create more jobs altogether, and we have to create good jobs, and workers have to regain, just like those workers in fast food restaurants, have to regain the right to organize unions and bargain collectively. That's been destroyed now, again, over the last 35 years. And that's why you see a shrinking middle class. And you see a middle class that used to look towards advancing, now a fearful middle class that fears that their children will fall into the ranks of poverty. So part-time work is a bad problem, but it is only one of many problems. And let me just, on the question—
Well, Stewart, you mentioned unions, and to play devil's advocate here, a lot of people say, well, you know, unions are what's causing the demise of a lot of companies. Like, for example, very famous case, the Hostess Twinkie situation. Many people are blaming that on the unions, as well as with some of the automakers, GM and Chrysler. That's what some say drove them into bankruptcy.
Well, without unions, GM and Chrysler would have gone under. They were able to bargain with their employees through the unions to save those companies, get a bridge loan from the federal government.
Stewart, I just want to ask you very quickly, what are the disadvantages for companies to hire employees part-time? I mean, it may seem like it's a better idea for the companies.
It's not good for longevity at the company. It's not good for company loyalty. It's not good for quality service. It's not good for the broader economy. It's terrible for the broader economy. And what you're doing when you hire people part-time instead of full-time is you're pulling money out of the economy. You're denying the economy the fuel that it takes to power the economy, which is wages, workers' wages. And let me just say, on the question of unions, unions created the first middle class in the history of the world in this country in the 40s and the 50s. And without unions, we wouldn't have this broad, deep middle class that is now shrinking. And if we're going to rebuild it, workers are going to have the collective power to form unions and bargain freely for a fair share of the wealth that they produce. That's why we have such huge inequality, the worst inequality in the history of the world, and growing poverty in America. The richest country
some
in
very
the history of
valid
the world.
points there. We're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much, Stewart Acuff, co-author of the book, America, Back to Work.